Hi, Tony DeWitt, Missouri appellate attorney and a person who does videos on YouTube. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been looking at the Federal Rules of Evidence, and today we're going to look at Federal Rule of Evidence 404. That applies to character evidence and evidence of other wrongs and other acts. So stay tuned. Rule 404 talks about character evidence, and here's what it says. Character evidence, prohibited uses. Evidence of a person's character or character trait is not admissible to prove that on a particular occasion that person acted in accordance with that character or trait. 2. Exceptions for a defendant or victim in a criminal case. The following exceptions apply in a criminal case. A defendant may offer evidence of the defendant's pertinent trait. If the evidence is admitted, the prosecutor may offer evidence to rebut it. And then B, subject to the limitations in Rule 412, which we'll get to later, a defendant may offer evidence of an alleged victim's pertinent trait, and if the evidence is admitted, the prosecutor may offer evidence to rebut it, or offer evidence of the defendant's same trait. And C, in a homicide case, the prosecutor may offer evidence of the alleged victim's trait of peacefulness to rebut evidence that the victim was the first aggressor. Exceptions for a witness. Evidence of a witness's character may be admitted under Rules 607, 608, and 609, which also we will get to in a couple of days. Other wrongs, crimes, or acts. Prohibited uses. Evidence of any other crime, wrong, or act is not admissible to prove a person's character in order to show that on a particular occasion the person acted in accordance with that character. Permitted uses. This evidence may be admissible for another purpose, such as proving motive, opportunity, intent, preparation, plan, knowledge, identity, absence of mistake, or lack of accident. Notice in a criminal case. In a criminal case, the prosecutor must A, provide reasonable notice of such evidence that the prosecutor intends to offer at trial so that the defendant has a fair opportunity to meet it, and B, articulate in that notice the permitted purpose for which the prosecutor intends to offer the evidence and the reasoning that supports it. And he has to do so in writing before trial or in any form during trial if the court, for good cause, excuses the pretrial notice. So every time the United States puts out a rule, the committee that drafts these rules will usually put out comments to help people understand the thrust of the rule. And on Rule 404, there is a particularly important comment. Here's what it says. So every time the United States puts out a rule, the committee that drafts these rules will usually put out comments to help people understand the thrust of the rule. And on Rule 404, there is a particularly important comment. Here's what it says. Character evidence is of slight probative value and may be very prejudicial. It tends to distract the trier of fact from the main question of what actually happened on the particular occasion. It subtly permits the trier of fact to reward the good man, to punish the bad man because of their respective characters, despite what the evidence in the case shows actually happened. That is the reason why, for the most part, it is difficult to get in character evidence in a criminal case. You can't show that Joe robbed a bank in 1996 to show that he robbed a bank in 2021, because doing so makes it look like he's acting in conformity with a character trait, that he's really a bank robber. And that is not allowed, because it essentially punishes him for a prior crime, not for the crime on which he may be at trial right now. So when can other wrongs and crimes come in? Well, for example, to show that it's not an accident. For example, in Chauvin's case, I believe they had video of him kneeling on other people, and that evidence came in to show that it was not an accident. It was not an accident that he put his knee on other people's necks. It's also admissible sometimes for evidence of knowledge. For example, if someone is being tried for trespass and they claim, well, I didn't know that I wasn't allowed back at this particular Walmart, then the state can introduce evidence of a prior conviction for trespass and the contents of that conviction that show that he was put on notice that he couldn't go into any Walmart. The purpose behind these restrictions is to protect the record and protect the defendant from an unfair form of prejudice. Now, there's a difference between simply prejudice and unfair prejudice. If you admit photographs of somebody or video of somebody beating somebody up, that certainly prejudices the jury against the defendant. But it's not an unfair prejudice because it shows what actually happened. Where you get into unfair prejudice is where you introduce evidence of him having done that 9 or 10 times previously, when that's not necessary to carry the case. He shouldn't be punished for what he did previously if he is only on trial for one event at this point. There are lots of cases that interpret character evidence, and there are far too many to go into in just a simple video like this. But this rule of evidence is one of the most important in the federal rules because it protects people from the unfair prejudice of being labeled as a particular type of person or criminal. It labels them. If you label somebody, people tend to respond to labels. And it has an unfairly prejudicial effect on the jury. So that's the reason and the rationale behind Rule 404. There are some interesting Rule 404 cases, and at some point we may look at some of them. But for right now, I wanted you to have the understanding of what the rule actually says and what it actually means. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. That's always good because it feeds the YouTube algorithm. In addition, if you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you'd like the video. You know, liking a video makes you feel good all over, and it doesn't cost you a dime. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any more of these videos. The subscribe icon is over there on the right-hand side of your screen usually, and if you touch that subscribe icon, it will bring up a series of bells. If you touch the bell at the top, that will get you a notification every time we release a video on this channel. Thank you so much for watching, and have a terrific day.